Hey guys, tonight we are peeling back the gilded curtains, tiptoeing through marble halls, and diving headfirst into the intoxicating, often misunderstood world of the Ottoman Imperial Harem. Imagine, if you will, a place of unimaginable luxury, shimmering silks, the scent of exotic spices and perfumes lingering in the air, and the murmur of 1,000 secrets. It's a world within a world, a fortress of beauty and ambition, right in the heart of one of history's most powerful empires. You're about to step into the slippers of a young woman whose life is about to be irrevocably shaped by these very walls, and let's be honest, if you were actually dropped into this world, your chances of making it to breakfast, let alone becoming a sultana, are, shall we say, slim. The competition was fierce, the rules were complex, and a wrong word could cost you more than just your social standing. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It really helps the channel grow, and lets me know you're out there, listening in the dark. And while you're at it, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's always fascinating to see how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first hint of grey is just beginning to bleed through the high latticed windows of the Koğuş, the communal dormitory, when you awaken. It's less a gentle stirring and more a gradual surfacing from the depths of sleep, prodded by the subtle increase in ambient noise. Around you, dozens, perhaps even 100 or more, young women are in various states of wakefulness. The air is thick with the scent of sleep, bodies pressed close, and the faint lingering sweetness of yesterday's rosewater. Your internal alarm clock is a very stern Kalfa, a senior overseer whose sharp clap and even sharper voice could curdle milk from across the courtyard. Not exactly a gentle birdsong app waking you for your morning yoga. You stretch, your limbs stiff from the shared mattress, a long, slightly raised platform covered with cushions and carpets, where you and your fellow Acemi, or novices, sleep side by side. Personal space? Oh honey, that's a luxury reserved for, well, pretty much everyone are outside these walls. Here, you're basically in a lifelong slumber party, minus the pizza and truth or dare, and with significantly more existential dread. The girl next to you, a Circassian with eyes still full of mountain mists, murmurs in her sleep, a language you don't understand but whose sorrowful cadence needs no translation. Another, a fiery redhead from the northern steppes, is already sitting up, her expression one of grim determination. Everyone here has a story of how they arrived, and fewer fairy tales. Many girls were indeed captives of war, or purchased from slave markets, their lives uprooted and rerouted towards this singular, glittering cage. They arrived from all corners of the vast Ottoman Empire and beyond, bringing with them a kaleidoscope of languages, cultures, and heartaches. The morning chill bites at your exposed skin. You pull your thin woolen blanket tighter, a small comfort against the stone walls that seem to sweat coolness even in summer. Soon, the braziers will be lit, chasing away some of the damp, but for now, it's a shiver-inducing start. The hierarchy of the harem is everywhere, even here in the pre-dawn gloom. Senior girls, those who have been here longer or shown particular aptitude, have slightly better spots, perhaps a thicker cushion, or are attended to first by the lower-ranking servants who are already beginning to move about, their bare feet whispering on the cool stone floors. A Kalfa moves down the line, her footsteps heavy and purposeful. Yalla, yalla, get up, lazy bones. The day doesn't wait for sleepy heads. Her voice isn't cruel necessarily, just efficient. There's no room for coddling here. You swing your legs over the side of the platform, your feet finding the cold floor. The first task is ablution. You join the throng of girls heading towards the washing area. It's a communal space, of course, with running water, a testament to Ottoman engineering, but privacy is minimal. You splash cold water on your face, lesser spa day, and more, trying to convince yourself you're awake before someone important notices you're still half dreaming of escaping on a flying carpet. The soap is coarse, smelling faintly of lye and herbs. As you wash, you catch snippets of conversation. A rumour about a new shipment of silks, a whisper about one of the Gedikli, privileged concubines, who has caught the Sultan's eye, a complaint about the quality of the bread at last night's supper. It's a constant stream of information, speculation, and subtle power plays. Learning to filter it, to understand the undercurrents, is as vital to your survival as learning to embroider or play the oud. Historians still argue whether the primary motivation for women entering the harem, for those not captured, was ambition, familial pressure, or a perceived lack of other viable options for women in that era. For those like you, brought here without a choice in the matter, the motivation is simpler: survive, and perhaps, if the fates are kind, thrive. Dressing is next. Simple, undecorated shifts for novices. The vibrant jewel-tone kaftans and elaborate headdresses are for those higher up the ladder. A visual reminder of what you might aspire to or what might forever remain out of reach. Your fingers, still clumsy with sleep, fumble with the ties. A quirky little superstition you've picked up from an older girl is to always tie the right side of your sash before the left. She swore it brought good fortune for the day, or at least kept the particularly sharp-tongued Kalfas at bay. You're not sure you believe it, but in a place where your fate is so utterly out of your own hands, a little ritual can't hurt, can it? You glance around. Some faces are etched with anxiety, others with a practiced indifference. A few even show a flicker of hope. Today, like every day in the harem, is a blank page, and what will be written upon it is a mystery, dictated by forces far greater than yourself. The vastness of the Topkapi Palace complex, with its labyrinthine corridors and countless rooms, begins to stir outside your immediate world, its pulse slowly quickening, and you, a tiny cog in its enormous, intricate machinery, are now officially awake and part of its rhythm. Section 1 ended with you, dressed in your simple novice shift, ready to face the day within the stirring Topkapi Palace. The morning meal is as communal and structured as everything else. You file into another large hall, the scent of freshly baked bread, olives, and mild cheese filling the air. It's simple fare, but nourishing. There's no lingering over your food. You eat quickly, efficiently, always aware of the Kalfa's watchful eyes. Conversation is muted, mostly practical exchanges. You manage to snag an extra fig, a small victory to start the day. One of the older girls winks at you. She's perfected the art of the subtle food acquisition, a skill almost as valuable as mastering the ney flute. Once the meal is concluded, it's time for the real work to begin, your education. This isn't just about learning to read a love poem or play a pretty tune for your own amusement. The Ottoman Harem, particularly during its classical period, was a highly structured educational institution, designed to cultivate women who were not only beautiful, but also intelligent, cultured, and capable of navigating the complex social and political landscape of the court. You are being moulded, polished, and prepared, though for what specific destiny only time will tell. You and your group of Acemi are led through a series of courtyards and corridors, the architecture itself a lesson in Ottoman grandeur, to the dushain, the classrooms. These rooms are plainer than the opulent chambers you sometimes glimpse, but they are filled with the tools of learning, low writing desks, musical instruments lining the walls, stacks of books and rolls of paper. The air buzzes with a different kind of energy here, the quiet hum of concentration, the scratch of reed pens, the distant melody of a lute being tuned. Your schedule is rigorous, packed from mid-morning until late afternoon. First up might be Ottoman Turkish. This is crucial. While many girls arrive speaking a multitude of languages from across the empire and beyond, fluency in the language of the court is non-negotiable. Your instructor, a stern but fair hoka, teacher, drills you on grammar, vocabulary and pronunciation. The elegant flowing script of Ottoman Turkish, a Perso-Arabic alphabet, looks like beautiful, intricate lace, but learning to read and write it feels like trying to untangle 1,000 tiny knots with your brain. You practice your letters, the reed pen scratching against the paper, occasionally spattering ink that earns you a sharp look. It's a far cry from texting emojis, that's for sure. Then it's on to religious instruction. You learn the core tenets of Islam, the proper forms of prayer, and memorize passages from the Quran. This provides a moral and spiritual framework, and it's an essential part of integrating into Ottoman society. For many, regardless of their origins, this becomes a genuine source of comfort and guidance. After that, the arts. Oh, the arts. This is where talent can truly shine, or where your lack thereof can be painfully obvious. You might find yourself in a music class, attempting to coax a melody from an oud, its pear-shaped body resting awkwardly in your lap. Or perhaps it's the kanun, a complex zither whose strings seem to have a mind of their own. The plaintive cry of the knee, a reed flute, fills the air, played with heartbreaking skill by a girl who seems to breathe music. Some girls are naturals, their fingers dancing over the instruments as if born to it. You, perhaps, are still at the stage where your attempts sound more like a distressed cat than a courtly melody. More feeling, the instructor might cry. You're wooing the Sultan, not trying to scare away pigeons. Dance is another essential. This isn't just about busting a move, it's about grace, posture, and the subtle art of suggestion. You learn intricate traditional dances, your movements precise and flowing, your arms creating elegant lines, your eyes conveying emotions you're only just beginning to understand. It's exhausting work, demanding incredible muscle control and stamina. You practice walking, turning, even sitting, with a refined elegance designed to captivate. Remember how your mum always told you to sit up straight. Imagine that, but with the potential for imperial favour on the line. Poetry and literature are also on the curriculum. You recite ghazals, memorising lines filled with longing and beauty, learning the rhythms and cadences of Ottoman verse. Sometimes you even attempt to compose your own, though your early efforts might be more "roses are red, violets are blue, this harem life is making me stressed too" than Rumi. The ability to converse intelligently, to appreciate art and culture is highly valued. Historians still argue whether the extensive education in arts and letters was primarily to make the women more entertaining companions for the Sultan, or if it also served to empower them intellectually for potential roles of influence within the harem's own complex administration, and even beyond. And then there's etiquette. This is woven into everything. How to enter a room, how to address someone of higher rank, which is practically everyone when you're starting out. How to serve coffee without spilling a drop, even if your hands are trembling. How to eat gracefully, how to listen, how to be present but not intrusive. It's a complex dance of deference and self-possession. A quirky, less formal lesson you might pick up from the older girls is the art of strategic deafness, knowing when to conveniently not hear a potentially troublesome order or a bit of gossip that could get you entangled. It's a survival skill, really. The Kalfas and more senior Gidikli often act as assistant teachers or mentors, sharing their own experiences and wisdom. Competition is an undercurrent, yes, but there can also be surprising moments of solidarity, a shared eye roll over a particularly demanding instructor, a whispered word of encouragement when you finally master a difficult passage on the tanbur. You're all in this together, after all, navigating this extraordinary and often terrifying gilded cage. The day is long, your mind and body are pushed, and by the time the lessons conclude, you're often weary, but also a little more knowledgeable, a little more skilled, a little closer to understanding the intricate rules of this game of life you've been thrust into. You're not just a pretty face, you're becoming a work of art, a scholar, a potential queen, all rolled into one. No pressure, though. Section 2 closed with you, exhausted but more accomplished, after a day of rigorous harem education. As the afternoon sun begins to slant, casting long shadows across the courtyards, the formal lessons give way to a different, but no less important kind of learning, mastering the intricate social hierarchy and the unspoken rules of harem life. This isn't something taught from a textbook. It's learned through observation, through whispers, through the subtle shifts in power you witness daily. It's like being perpetually stuck in the most complicated season of a reality TV show, where alliances shift like desert sands, and one wrong look can get you voted off the island, or, worse. The harem is a pyramid, and at its very apex is the Sultan. Below him, and wielding immense power, is his mother, the Valide Sultan. If the current Sultan has young sons, their mothers, the Haseki Sultans, favoured consorts who had borne princes, also hold significant rank and influence. Then come the Kadıns, the official consorts, usually 4 in number, who have also borne children. Below them are the Iqbal, the fortunate ones, concubines who have caught the Sultan's eye and favour, even if they haven't yet produced an heir. And then there are the Gözde, the ones in the eye, those who have attracted a fleeting glance or interest from the Sultan, a precarious position hovering between anonymity and potential advancement. You, as an Acemi or a Kyrie, a general term for a concubine not yet noticed by the Sultan, are at the broad base of this pyramid, looking up at a dizzying array of superiors. Navigating this requires a skill set all its own. You learn to read the room, or rather, the garden, the bathhouse, the dormitory, with an almost preternatural sensitivity. A slight frown from a Kadıns, a hushed conversation abruptly stopping when you approach, the way a Kalfa favours one girl over another. These are all clues in a complex social puzzle. The rules of precedence were strictly observed. For instance, when entering a room, women of higher rank always went first, and seating arrangements were meticulously planned according to status. It was a constant, silent ballet of deference and assertion. The Kızlar As, the chief black eunuch, is a figure of immense authority within the harem. He is the primary administrator, responsible for its day-to-day running, the discipline of the women, their education, and crucially, he is the one who often acts as the intermediary between the harem and the sultan. His favour can make or break a career. You learn to be respectful, almost invisible in his presence, unless directly addressed. He's like the stern principal, the HR manager, and the bouncer all rolled into one, and you definitely don't want to be on his bad side. Think of him as the harem's gatekeeper, quite literally controlling access to the Golden Road, the passage leading to the Sultan's private apartments. Then there are the Kalfas and Ustas, the senior women who manage the household, train the novices, and enforce discipline. Some are kind, matronly figures who genuinely care for the girls under their charge. Others are embittered by their own unfulfilled ambitions, taking out their frustrations on those below them. You learn quickly which ones to approach for help, which ones to avoid, and which ones might be swayed by a small, respectfully offered gift. Perhaps a particularly well-done piece of embroidery, or a sweetmeat saved from your meal. Little acts of ingratiation, if done subtly, can smooth your path. It's not bribery, it's strategic networking. Friendships, genuine and deep, can and do form. In this environment of intense competition and confinement, shared experiences forge strong bonds. You find kindred spirits, girls you can laugh with, cry with, share your meagre secrets with. These alliances are precious, offering solace and support. But you also learn to be cautious. Not everyone who smiles at you is a friend. Jealousy is a potent force, and a carelessly shared confidence can be twisted and used against you. Historians still argue whether the bonds between women in the harem were primarily forms of mutual support and survival, or if they were often strategic alliances aimed at collective advancement or protection against rivals. It was likely a complex mix of both. A quirky, almost unspoken rule you pick up on is the hierarchy of chores. Even though there are lower-ranking servants, hizmetkar, to do the truly menial tasks, novices and lower-status concubines are often assigned duties. The desirability of these tasks is, of course, ranked. Mending the Valide Sultan's silks? High status. Cleaning the drains in the laundry? Not so much. You learn to subtly angle for the tasks that bring you closer to the notice of important people, or at least offer a slightly less unpleasant way to pass the time. Gossip is the lifeblood of the harem, its currency and its poison. News travels with astonishing speed through the network of interconnected chambers and courtyards. Who is in favour? Who is out? Who received a special gift from the Sultan? Who had a secret meeting with whom? You learn to listen more than you speak, to sift fact from rumour, and to understand that information is power. But you also learn the danger of becoming a source of gossip, or its target. It's a delicate balance. You're essentially living inside a real-life version of Twitter, but instead of getting ratioed, you could get, well, let's just say the consequences are a bit more severe than a bruised ego. You observe the subtle power plays, a Haseki, ensuring her son is seen by the Sultan at a crucial moment, a Kadıns subtly undermining a rival through a well-placed comment to the Valide Sultan, and Iqbal flaunting a new jewel to inspire envy. You see the small acts of rebellion too, a roll of the eyes behind a Kalfa's back, a forbidden book passed secretly from hand to hand, a shared, knowing glance that speaks volumes without a word. These are the whispers and shadows, the invisible architecture that supports, and sometimes threatens to topple, the more overt structures of harem life. You're learning to walk a tightrope, with grace and caution, because in this world, a misstep can have far-reaching consequences. Your survival, and any hope of advancement, depends not just on your beauty or your talents, but on your ability to understand and navigate this complex, often treacherous human landscape. Section 3 saw you mastering the harem's complex social hierarchy. Now, with the lessons in etiquette and social manoeuvring fresh in your mind, your day isn't just about learning and observing, It's also about contributing. The imperial harem isn't merely a residence for the Sultan's women, it's a vast, self-contained institution, almost a mini-city within the Topkapi Palace, and it requires a tremendous amount of labour to function smoothly. Every resident, from the highest-ranking sultana down to the newest Acemi like yourself, has a role to play, purpose that contributes to the overall well-being and operational efficiency of this intricate world. Think of it as a very, very fancy co-op, where your chores might involve gold thread, instead of taking out the recycling. Your specific duties will depend on your age, your skills, your length of service, and sometimes, frankly, the whims of the Kalfas in charge of assignments. As a novice, you're likely to start with less glamorous, but still essential tasks. You might be assigned to the kitchens, not necessarily cooking for the Sultan, that's a highly specialised role, but perhaps assisting in the preparation of meals for the hundreds of women and eunuchs who live within the harem walls. This could involve chopping vegetables for an eternity, grinding spices until your arms ache, or endless polishing of copper pots until they gleam like captured sunshine. It's hard work, often hot and steamy, but it also offers a chance to learn about the incredible Ottoman cuisine, the subtle blends of flavours, and maybe even sneak an extra piece of baklava if you're quick, and the head cook is in a good mood. Or perhaps you'll be assigned to the laundry. Imagine the sheer volume of fabric that passes through a place like this. Kaftans of silk and velvet, delicate undergarments, voluminous bed linens, intricately embroidered towels. It all needs to be washed, often by hand, dried, pressed and perfumed. You might spend hours with your hands in soapy water, scrubbing alongside other girls, the air thick with the scent of lye and damp cloth, a far cry from the jasmine and rosewater you might associate with the harem's perfumed inhabitants. The harem had its own dedicated laundry facilities, and keeping the vast quantities of clothing and linens clean for its hundreds of residents was a monumental ongoing task. Needlework is another common and highly valued contribution, from mending simple shifts to participating in the creation of elaborate embroideries that might adorn the Sultan's own garments or decorate the opulent chambers. Skill with a needle is a prized asset. You might spend hours hunched over a piece of fabric, your fingers carefully guiding the thread, creating intricate floral patterns or geometric designs. It's meticulous, eye-straining work, but it can also be a quiet, meditative activity, a chance for your mind to wander as your hands are busy. Plus, producing a particularly beautiful piece of embroidery could bring you to the favourable attention of a Kalfa, or even a higher-ranking lady. It's like crafting, but with much higher stakes than just getting likes on Etsy. Some girls with particular talents might be assigned to the harem's infirmary, assisting the hekimbashi, chief physician, or the female healers who tend to the sick. This requires a calm demeanour, a strong stomach, and a willingness to learn about traditional remedies, herbal preparations, and basic nursing care. In an environment where illness could spread quickly, these roles are vital. As you gain seniority or demonstrate particular aptitudes, your responsibilities might shift. You could become an assistant to one of the Kalfas, helping to manage inventories of supplies. Everything from bolts of silk and jars of perfume to sacks of grain and barrels of olive oil. The harem is a massive consumer of goods, and keeping track of it all is a significant administrative task. Historians still argue whether the economic roles within the harem, such as managing supplies or producing goods for use or sale, provided women with a genuine sense of agency and contribution, or were simply another form of uncompensated labour within a system of enslavement. A quirky, and perhaps surprisingly mundane purpose many girls served was simply to be part of the scenery. When the Valide Sultan held court, or when important female visitors were received, a retinue of beautifully dressed, well-behaved young women added to the splendour and gravitas of the occasion. You might be chosen to stand silently, a human ornament for hours on end, your main job being not to faint or fidget. It sounds incredibly dull, and probably was, but it was also a chance to observe the powerful at close quarters, to see how they conducted themselves, and to be seen, which in the harem was always a double-edged sword. Even leisure activities like music and dance, which you learned as part of your education, could become a form of work. You might be called upon to entertain the Valide Sultan or other high-ranking women to provide a pleasant backdrop to their conversations or diversions. Your performance wouldn't just be for fun, it would be a demonstration of your skills and a contribution to the refined atmosphere of the court. The underlying principle is that idleness is not encouraged. Everyone is expected to be productive in some way. This not only keeps the harem functioning, but also, perhaps, keeps hundreds of intelligent, energetic young women from becoming too restless or prone to mischief. Though, let's be honest, mischief probably still found a way, like water finding a crack in a dam. The daily grind, whether it's stirring a pot, plying a needle, or perfecting a dance, gives structure to your days and a sense of purpose, however small, within this vast and often overwhelming institution. You're not just waiting, you're doing. You're a part of the harem's beating heart, contributing to its daily life, its maintenance, and its splendour, one repetitive, necessary task at a time. Section 4 detailed your contribution to the harem's daily operations, keeping the mini-city running. Now, as the afternoon wears on, or perhaps on a designated day, another crucial aspect of your life here takes centre stage, the art of allure, which begins with the elaborate, almost sacred ritual of bathing and beautification. This isn't just about getting clean, it's a transformative process, a declaration of self-care, or perhaps self-preservation given the context, and an essential preparation for potentially catching the eye that matters most, the Sultan's. In a world where your physical appearance can be a significant key to unlocking power and privilege, these rituals are taken very, very seriously. Forget your quick 5-minute shower before rushing off to work. This is a full-blown spa day, Ottoman style, but with much higher stakes than just feeling refreshed. The hammam, the Turkish bath, is central to this. The harem would have had its own private, lavishly decorated bathhouses, often miniature jewel boxes of marble, intricate tile work and domed ceilings that allow steam to swirl and light to filter through in ethereal beams. Entering the hammam is like stepping into another world, warm, humid, and filled with the sounds of splashing water, murmured conversations, and the scrape of a coarse exfoliating mitt, against skin. The process is multi-staged. First, you enter the sokluk, the cool room where you undress, wrapping yourself in a pestemel, a traditional cotton or silk cloth. Here, you might relax on a raised marble platform, allowing your body to acclimate to the warmth that will soon envelop you. This is also a social space, a chance to chat with other girls, to exchange news, or simply to enjoy a moment of relative calm before the main event. Then you move into the yerlikluk, the warm room, and finally into the harare, the hot room. This is the heart of the hammam, steamy and intensely warm, with a large heated marble slab, the zubektaşı, novel stone, at its centre. Here you lie down, allowing the heat and steam to open your pores and relax your muscles. Attendants, often older, experienced women from the harem staff, or even other concubines assigned to this duty, will then begin the scrubbing process. Using the kez, they vigorously exfoliate your entire body, sloughing away dead skin cells until your skin is pink and incredibly smooth. It's not always the most gentle experience. Think industrial strength exfoliation. But the results are undeniable. You're basically getting a full body polish. After the scrubbing comes the soaping. Using rich fragrant soaps made with olive oil, laurel and various herbs, the attendants work up a luxurious lather, often using a porous cloth bag to create voluminous clouds of bubbles, which are then smoothed over your skin. It's a surprisingly playful and sensuous part of the ritual. Then you're rinsed with alternating buckets of warm and cool water, a practice believed to invigorate the skin and circulation. The Ottomans inherited and refined the Roman bath culture, and hammams became integral not only to hygiene, but also to social life across the empire for both men and women. Once the bathing ritual itself is complete, you return to the cooler rooms to relax, sip on sherbet or tea, and begin the beautification process. Your hair, now clean and fragrant, will be meticulously combed and often treated with oils like argan or almond to make it shine. Intricate braiding styles are popular, or perhaps it will be left to flow, depending on current fashions or your personal assets. Historians still argue whether the elaborate hairstyles and adornments were solely for the Sultan's pleasure, or also served as expressions of individual and group identity within the harem's competitive environment. Skincare is paramount. Your face might be treated with rosewater toner, followed by moisturizers made from natural ingredients. Creams and balms, often scented with musk, ambergris, or jasmine, are applied to your body, leaving your skin soft, supple, and subtly perfumed. Eyebrows are shaped, perhaps darkened with kohl. Kohl is also used to line the eyes, making them appear larger and more dramatic. The original smoky eye, if you will. A touch of rouge, made from natural pigments, might be applied to the cheeks and lips for a healthy glow. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen from ancient Egypt we talked about once? Well, Ottoman beauty standards were a bit more refined, focusing on enhancing natural beauty rather than, well, scaring away crocodiles with your face. Perfume is the final invisible touch. The Ottomans were masters of perfumery, and the harem would have been filled with an intoxicating array of scents. Attar of roses, jasmine, sandalwood, amber, musk. These were applied to pulse points, woven into hair, even infused into clothing. The choice of perfume could be a personal signature, a subtle message, or simply a way to feel beautiful and confident. This whole process can take hours. It's a leisurely, almost meditative affair, a far cry from today's rushed beauty routines. It's a time for pampering, for female bonding, and for preparing yourself both physically and mentally. Looking your best is not just vanity, it's a strategic imperative, a quirky tidbit. Some sources suggest that certain recipes for beauty treatments, like face masks or hair pomades, were closely guarded secrets passed down through generations of harem women or kalfas. Finding out the recipe for a particularly effective glow-up potion could be a minor coup. As you emerge from the hammam and the subsequent primping, you feel transformed. Your skin is glowing, your hair is lustrous, your body is scented and relaxed. You feel like you could at least compete for the attention of the most powerful man in the world. Whether that attention will come, and whether it will be a blessing or a curse, remains to be seen. But for now, you have armed yourself with one of the harem's most potent weapons, carefully cultivated radiant beauty. You glide back to your quarters, a vision in freshly laundered silks, ready for whatever the evening might bring, feeling like 1,000,000 gold pistas, even if your actual allowance is considerably less. Section 5 left you feeling refreshed and radiant after an extensive bathing and beautification ritual. But life within the harem isn't solely about rigorous training, endless chores, navigating treacherous social ladders, or constant beautification. Amidst the structure and the stress, there are also moments of respite, stolen snatches of leisure, and opportunities for genuine connection and even joy. The harem, for all its gilded cage qualities, is still a community of women, and like any community, it finds ways to cultivate happiness and human connection, even if it's just a brief escape from the ever-present pressures. You learn to seek out these oases of calm and camaraderie, as they are essential for your sanity. The Topkapi Palace boasts stunning gardens, and parts of these, or dedicated courtyards within the harem complex itself, would have been accessible to the women. These green spaces, filled with fragrant roses, shady cypress trees, vibrant tulips, an Ottoman obsession, and the soothing sound of fountains, offer a much-needed connection to nature. Here, you might stroll with a friend, sharing confidences away from the more crowded communal areas. You could sit, beneath a flowering tree, perhaps with a forbidden book of poetry smuggled from the library, losing yourself in its verses. The cultivation of tulips became a cultural phenomenon during the Ottoman tulip period in the early 18th century, symbolising wealth, beauty, and the ephemeral nature of life. A rather fitting metaphor for harem existence, don't you think? Storytelling is a cherished pastime. In a world before Netflix and endless streaming services, a good storyteller is worth her weight in gold. An older woman, perhaps a kalfa with a knack for spinning a yarn, might gather a group of younger girls around her in the evening, regaling them with folk tales, romantic legends, or even carefully edited and harem-appropriate versions of historical events. Laughter would ripple through the group, or a collective gasp at a dramatic turn. You might even try your hand at telling a story yourself, embellishing tales from your homeland or inventing new ones. It's a way to escape, to entertain, and to bond. Music, as much as it's a part of your formal education, is also a source of pleasure and informal entertainment. Away from the critical ears of instructors, girls gather to play instruments, sing songs from their diverse homelands, or even compose light-hearted tunes. The mournful cry of a Circassian love song might mingle with a lively Balkan dance tune, or a yearning Anatolian melody. These impromptu concerts are a vibrant expression of the harem's multicultural tapestry. You might find yourself clapping along, perhaps even attempting a few dance steps, feeling a rare sense of uninhibited joy. Remember that difficult oud lesson? Maybe here, in a relaxed setting, you finally manage to play a recognisable tune, earning genuine applause from your friends, which feels way better than a grudging nod from your teacher. Games are another popular diversion. Board games like chess and backgammon, or tavla as it's known in Turkish, are played with fierce concentration and much good-natured heckling. Card games, though perhaps sometimes frowned upon if gambling is involved, are also likely played in quieter corners. Simple guessing games, riddles, and wordplay help to pass the time and sharpen the wits. Historians still argue whether these leisure activities were genuinely free time, or were subtly managed and observed by the harem administration to gauge personalities and aptitudes, or simply to keep the women occupied and less prone to discontent. It's probably a bit of both, let's be honest. Embroidery and other crafts, while often part of your assigned duties, can also be pursued for pleasure. Creating something beautiful with your own hands, a small embroidered handkerchief for a friend, a delicate floral design on a piece of linen, can be deeply satisfying. There's a quiet pride in skill and artistry shared among the women. They might admire each other's work, exchange patterns, or offer advice. Food, beyond the basic sustenance of mealtimes, can also be a source of shared pleasure. If special treats are distributed, perhaps sweets sent by the Sultan, or fruits in season, they are savoured and often shared. Sometimes girls with kitchen privileges might even manage to concoct a small, unofficial delicacy, a taste of home, shared secretly with a few close companions. These little culinary adventures are a welcome break from the routine. A quirky, perhaps apocryphal tidbit involves concubines trying to recreate snacks from their childhoods, using harem ingredients, sometimes with hilarious and inedible results, leading to much shared laughter over the failed experiment. The bonds of friendship formed in these stolen moments are often incredibly strong. Living in such close quarters, sharing the same unique pressures and uncertainties, creates a powerful sense of sisterhood among some. You celebrate each other's small triumphs, comfort each other during disappointments, and offer a listening ear for worries and dreams. These friendships are a lifeline, a reminder of your shared humanity in a world designed to objectify. Of course, rivalries and jealousies exist, as we've discussed, but so too does genuine affection and loyalty. These moments of leisure, connection, and simple pleasure are not grand events. They are the small, shimmering threads of normalcy, woven into the extraordinary tapestry of harem life. They are the quiet conversations in a sun-dappled courtyard, the shared laughter over a misplayed note on the kanun, the comforting presence of a friend as you embroider a dream of escape or advancement. These are the times when you feel less like a trainee concubine and more like a young woman, finding pockets of joy and solace in a world that demands so much of you. These are the moments that help you breathe. Section 6 painted a picture of those precious stolen moments of camaraderie and leisure, the quiet interludes that make life within the harem bearable. You're perhaps just finishing a shared cup of sherbet with a newfound friend in a sun-dappled courtyard, the scent of jasmine heavy in the air, a rare feeling of peace settling over you. Maybe you're humming a tune you learned, or mentally reviewing a particularly tricky passage of poetry. It's one of those fleeting instances where the gilded bars of your cage seem to recede just a little. And then, it happens. A hush falls. Not gradually, but suddenly, as if a giant invisible hand has pressed the mute button on the entire harem. Conversations die mid-sentence. The gentle strumming of an oud from a nearby chamber ceases abruptly. Even the birds in the cypress trees seem to hold their breath. This particular brand of silence is unique, and it always heralds one thing: the approach of someone exceptionally important, and usually someone who can change your life with a single word. Your stomach does a little flip-flop, the kind you get right before a big exam you haven't studied for, or when your boss calls you into their office with that tone. Through the archway leading from the main corridor, a figure appears, and the air crackles with a mixture of fear and deference. It's the Kızlar Ağası, the chief black eunuch. He is an imposing presence, always dressed in fine robes, his expression typically unreadable, his eyes missing nothing. He moves with a deliberate, almost regal gait, flanked by a couple of his attendants. The Kızlar Ağası was one of the most powerful officials in the Ottoman Empire, often third in rank, only to the Sultan and the Grand Vizier, controlling vast estates and immense wealth, and wielding significant political influence through his access to the Sultan and the Valide Sultan. His arrival in your particular section of the harem unannounced is never just a casual drop-in. He doesn't shout, he doesn't need to. His very presence commands absolute attention. He stops, his gaze sweeping over the assembled girls who have frozen in place, some mid-stitch, others mid-giggle, now all silent and wide-eyed. Your heart, which was beating at a pleasantly languid pace moments ago, now decides to audition for a speed-drumming competition against your ribs. You try to look down, to appear humble and unremarkable, hoping his gaze will pass you by. It's a strategy most girls employ, like ostriches burying their heads in the sand, except the sand is marble and the ostrich is terrified of being chosen for, well, anything really when it comes this unexpectedly. His voice, when he speaks, is surprisingly soft, yet it carries to every corner of the courtyard. He confers briefly with a senior Kalfa who has hurried to his side, her face a mask of polite servitude. The Kalfa nods, her eyes darting around, and then she looks directly at you. Oh no. Please, no. The Qizlar Aza turns his head slightly and his eyes, dark and piercing, lock onto yours. For a moment the world seems to shrink, containing only you and this powerful man who holds so many strings of destiny in his hands. He utters your name, just your name. But in the charged atmosphere of the harem, that single word resonates like a thunderclap. You, he says, perhaps with a slight inclination of his head. Come. The blood drains from your face, then rushes back, making your ears roar. Your legs feel like overcooked noodles. Around you, you can sense the collective intake of breath from the other girls. Some will be feeling a pang of envy, others a frisson of fear on your behalf, and nearly all of them an intense curiosity. Gossip in the harem travels faster than a cheetah on an espresso buzz, and this is front-page news. You rise, your limbs clumsy, your mind racing. What could this mean? Have you unknowingly committed some infraction? Is it a summons for a special task? Or could it be the summons, the one every girl here simultaneously dreams of and dreads? The possibility hangs in the air, heavy and unspoken. You remember a quirky superstition shared by an older girl. If the Qizlar Aza summons you on a Tuesday, it's good luck, but on a Thursday, beware. You frantically try to remember what day of the week it is, as if that flimsy piece of folklore could actually predict your fate. You walk towards him, trying to emulate the graceful glide you've been taught in your dance lessons, but feeling more like a newborn foal taking its first wobbly steps. Your simple novice shift suddenly feels inadequate, plain. You wish you'd paid more attention during this morning's beautification, maybe added an extra touch of kohl. Not that it would likely make a difference to the Qizlar Aza, but still. He doesn't offer any explanation. He simply turns and begins to walk, expecting you to follow. The Kalfa gives you a sharp, unreadable look. Is it encouragement? A warning? Who can tell? You fall into step a respectful distance behind him and his attendants, your heart still pounding a frantic rhythm. The familiar corridors of the harem suddenly seem alien, each turn potentially leading to an unknown future. Historians still argue about the degree of agency concubines possessed. While their lives were constrained, moments like these, a summons, represented a critical juncture where their path could diverge dramatically, though the choice of direction was rarely their own. As you walk, your mind is a whirlwind. You try to recall every lesson, every piece of advice. Be respectful. Be serene. Do not speak unless spoken to. Show no fear, even if you're quaking internally like a leaf in a hurricane. This is it. This is one of those moments you knew could come. A turning point. The gilded cage has just rattled its bars, and it seems you are the one being singled out. The silence from the other women as you depart is deafening. A mixture of pity, excitement, and perhaps a little bit of relief that it wasn't them. This time. Section 7 ended with the Qizlar Aza summoning you, your heart pounding as you followed him through the harem's corridors. The walk is not long in terms of distance, but it feels like an eternity. Each footstep on the cool marble echoes in the profound silence that seems to follow in the Qizlar Aza's wake. The usual hum of harem life, the distant laughter, the clatter of looms, the murmur of lessons, is conspicuously absent, or perhaps you're just too consumed by your own racing thoughts to notice it. Your senses are heightened. The scent of beeswax from polished wood, the intricate patterns of the Eunuch tiles on the walls, the way the light falls through a high arched window, details you might have overlooked 1,000 times now seem incredibly vivid, almost painfully so. You pass by more senior women, Gedikli, or even Iqbals, who observe your small procession with knowing, sometimes pitying, sometimes envious glances. Their expressions are veiled, but their eyes follow you. You're acutely aware of your simple attire, your novice status. It feels as though you're walking through a gallery of far more accomplished artworks, and you're just a hastily sketched charcoal study. You try to keep your gaze demurely lowered, as you've been taught, but it's hard not to flick your eyes up to try and read the faces, to glean some clue about what awaits you. The Kızlar Asa leads you out of the more communal areas of the harem, deeper into the warren of passages that make up this vast complex. The architecture becomes more refined, the decorations more opulent. You see glimpses of private apartments, hints of the luxury reserved for those higher up the harem's intricate ladder. This is territory you haven't ventured into before, and a fresh wave of trepidation washes over you. Remember that time you got lost in a department store as a kid? Amplify that feeling by about 1,000, and add the distinct possibility that the store manager is an all-powerful sultan. Finally, you arrive at a pair of imposing, beautifully carved wooden doors. They are guarded by other eunuchs, stern-faced and silent, who bow deeply as the Kızlar Asa approaches. This, you realise with a sickening lurch in your stomach, is the entrance to a very significant part of the palace. The Kızlar Asa stops. He turns to you, his expression still unreadable. For a moment you think he might speak, might offer some word of explanation or instruction, but he remains silent, merely gesturing for you to wait. He then proceeds through the doors, disappearing from your sight. You are left standing in the corridor, alone except for the impassive guards. The silence here is different, heavier, imbued with the weight of centuries of power and secrecy. You can hear your own heartbeat, loud and unsteady in your ears. You smooth down your simple dress, wishing you had something, anything, more impressive to wear. You try to calm your breathing, recalling the lessons on maintaining composure. Panic is not an option, or rather, it is an option, but a really, really bad one. Minutes stretch into an agonizingly long time. You fight the urge to fidget, to pace. You focus on a pattern in the carpet, trying to trace its intricate swirls with your eyes, anything to distract from the terrifying possibilities churning in your mind. Is this a test? Are you being judged on your ability to wait patiently, to remain serene under pressure? The pathway known as the Golden Road, Altın Yol, was the corridor connecting the harem to the Sultan's private apartments, the Privy Chamber, and the Imperial Hall. It was along this route that concubines chosen for the Sultan's bed would be escorted. While you may not be on the Golden Road itself just yet, you are undoubtedly in its antechamber, its waiting room of destiny. A quirky, slightly unnerving detail you notice is a faint scent of oud and ambergris lingering in the air, richer and more potent than the perfumes commonly used in the novices' quarters. It's the scent of power, of proximity to the Sultan. It's both intoxicating and intimidating. Finally, one of the heavy doors creaks open again, and the Kızlar Asa reappears. He beckons you forward. Your legs feel like lead, but you force yourself to move, to walk towards those doors with as much grace as you can muster. As you step across the threshold, you leave behind the world of the communal harem, the world of lessons and chores and shared dormitories. You are entering a new realm, one of hushed opulence and immense concentrated power. The corridor you enter is more dimly lit, richly carpeted, the walls adorned with exquisite calligraphy and subtle gilding. It's quiet, almost unnervingly so. The Kızlar Asa leads you a short way further, then stops before another, even more ornate door. This, you sense, is it. This is the threshold you've heard whispered about, dreamed about, feared. He doesn't knock. He simply pushes the door open gently and gestures for you to enter. He does not enter with you. He remains outside, a silent sentinel. You take a deep breath, trying to steady your nerves. This is the moment. All your training, all your hopes, all your fears have converged on this single point in time. Historians still argue about the emotional and psychological state of women at this juncture. Was it unmitigated fear, ambitious excitement, resigned acceptance, or a complex cocktail of all three? For you, standing on the precipice, it feels like all of the above, swirling into a dizzying vortex. You step forward, alone, into the chamber beyond. The Golden Road, in essence, has just been traversed. You are now in the immediate orbit of the Sultan, a place from which few return unchanged. The air within is warm, perfumed, and silent, save for the crackling of a nearby brazier. Your journey to this point has been one of passive movement, of following orders. Now you must act, react, and pray to whatever gods you hold dear that you do so correctly. The door closes softly behind you, the click of the latch an almost deafening sound in the stillness. Section 8 culminated with you stepping alone into a private chamber, the door closing softly behind you, marking your arrival in the Sultan's immediate orbit. The room is unlike anything you've experienced before. It's not as vast as some of the state halls, but it exudes an intimate, almost suffocating luxury. Rich, dark carpets from Persia or Hammam cushion your every hesitant step, swallowing sound. The walls are adorned with exquisite Iznik tiles, their blues and turquoises glowing softly in the flickering light from several ornate silver braziers that cast dancing shadows, and perhaps a few strategically placed oil lamps or candelabra. The air is heavy with the scent you noticed earlier: oud, ambergris, and something else. A musky, masculine aroma that is unmistakably the Sultan's own. It's a heady, almost disorienting perfume of power. Low divans, piled high with silk and velvet cushions embroidered with gold and silver thread, line the walls. Small inlaid tables hold jewelled caskets, books bound in tooled leather, and perhaps a half-eaten bowl of fruit or a delicate porcelain cup. It's a room designed for comfort, for privacy, for intimacy. Your heart is now trying to escape your chest via your throat. You remember all those lessons on etiquette, on how to behave in the presence of greatness, but your mind feels like a snow globe that's been violently shaken. And then you see him. He might be reclining on one of the divans, perhaps idly turning the pages of a book, or simply gazing into the flames of a brazier. The Sultan, the Padishah, the shadow of God on earth, the man who holds the fate of empires, and your own tiny fate, in the palm of his hand. He is not an abstract concept anymore, not a distant figurehead, but a living, breathing presence in the same room as you. He may be younger than you imagined, or older, more imposing, or surprisingly unassuming in his private moments. He will be dressed in fine, but perhaps not formal robes, a luxurious house kaftan, perhaps of silk or cashmere. Sultans, despite their immense power and public persona, were still human beings with their own personalities, preferences and moods, which would invariably influence these private encounters. He looks up. His eyes meet yours. For a moment time seems to stop. This is the gaze you've been trained for, the attention you've been polished to attract. Now that it's upon you, it's terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. You perform the deep, respectful obeisance you've practiced countless times, sinking gracefully to your knees, then bowing your head to touch the floor, a gesture of ultimate submission and respect. You remain there, your forehead pressed against the cool marble or the soft carpet, awaiting his command. The silence stretches, broken only by the soft crackle of the brazier. Every second feels like an hour. You can feel the blood pounding in your ears. Don't faint, you tell yourself. Definitely do not faint. That would be a terrible first impression. Oh, she's lovely, but prone to spontaneous unconsciousness. Next, you may rise. His voice. It might be deep and resonant or surprisingly gentle. Whatever its quality, it's a voice accustomed to instant obedience. You rise slowly, gracefully, keeping your eyes modestly downcast as instructed. You stand a respectful distance away, your hands clasped loosely before you. You're aware of every tiny movement you make, every breath you take. He might study you for a long moment, his gaze assessing. This is the ultimate audition. He might ask your name, though he likely already knows it, or perhaps where you are from. He might make a comment about your appearance, your demeanour. Your responses should be soft, respectful, and brief. No sudden movements, no babbling. Think graceful, serene, and utterly captivating. Easier said than done when your insides are doing the cha-cha. What happens next is, of course, the crux of the entire encounter. This is the night of destiny. The entire purpose of your presence in this room, from the harem's perspective, is singular. He might simply gesture for you to approach. He might engage you in some light conversation first, perhaps asking about your skills. Can you sing? Play an instrument? Recite poetry? This is where all those hours of lessons are put to the ultimate test. If you are asked to perform, you do so with all the skill and grace you can muster, pouring your heart into it, hoping to please, to charm, to enchant. A quirky and perhaps nerve-wracking detail is that sometimes the Valide Sultan or a trusted Khalfa might have coached the girl on the Sultan's current mood or preferences, if he's been pleased by a particular style of music lately, or if he's been in a more serious contemplative frame of mind. You hope you got the right memo. The encounter will proceed according to his desires. The aim, from your perspective, or at least the perspective drilled into you, is to be pleasing, to be a delightful companion, to make him desire your company again. This is not about romance in the modern sense. It is about favour, about advancement, about securing a place, however precarious, in the constellation of power that surrounds the Sultan. Historians still argue about the extent to which genuine affection or emotional connection could develop in these highly structured and politically charged encounters, versus them being purely transactional or duty-bound. The details of the intimacy itself are, of course, private and varied. What is certain is that for you, this night is a monumental turning point. It could be the beginning of a path to becoming an Iqbal, a Kadıns, or even, if fate and biology align, the mother of a future prince or sultan. Or it could be a singular event, a fleeting moment of imperial attention, after which you return to the relative anonymity of the harem, perhaps never to be summoned again. The uncertainty is immense. There are traditions and rituals surrounding even this most private of acts. For instance, after the encounter, the Sultan would traditionally gift the concubine with a handkerchief, or some other token if he was pleased. The value and nature of this gift would be eagerly scrutinized back in the harem as an indicator of his favour. As the encounter draws to a close, whether it's after an hour or an entire night, you will again perform the ritual obeisance. You will back out of his presence, never turning your back on the Sultan. Your mind will be a whirl of emotions. Relief that it's over, anxiety about how you were received, a dawning awareness that your life has fundamentally changed, for better or worse. You may feel a sense of triumph or trepidation, or simply a profound exhaustion. You have navigated the treacherous waters of the Sultan's chamber, and for now, at least, you have survived. The night of destiny has passed, and the dawn that approaches will find you a different woman than the one who entered these perfumed, firelit chambers. Section 9 detailed your intense, life-altering encounter in the Sultan's private chambers. As you back out of that opulent room, the heavy door closing behind you with a soft click, you are met once again by the Kızlar Asa, or another high-ranking eunuch. Their expression, as always, is carefully neutral, offering no clue as to what they might know or surmise about the events that just transpired. You're escorted back through the now familiar, yet still intimidating corridors, the ones that led you to the Sultan's presence, what feels like a lifetime ago. The journey back to the main harem quarters is a blur. Your body moves on autopilot, executing the graceful steps and demure posture ingrained through long practice, but your mind is a maelstrom. Did you please him? Was your conversation witty enough, your song sweet enough, your deference absolute? Did he smile? Did he frown? Every tiny detail of the encounter is replayed, analysed, agonised over. You search for signs, for portents. The weight of the unspoken question, will I be summoned again, presses down on you with an almost physical force. It's like waiting for exam results, but the exam is your entire future, and the grading curve is impossibly steep. As you re-enter the more familiar sections of the harem, the atmosphere is thick with anticipation. News of your summons will have spread like wildfire, and your return is eagerly, and perhaps anxiously awaited. Eyes will be on you, curious, envious, speculative. The Khalfas, the other Acemi, even some of the more senior women, will try to read your expression, your demeanour, searching for any hint of what occurred, any indication of your new standing. Did you receive a gift, a special handkerchief? The subtle signals are everything. Remember that rumour mill we talked about? It's currently operating at maximum capacity, churning out theories about your night. You are likely escorted not back to the communal Koğuş immediately, but perhaps to a slightly more private space, or to the chamber of a senior Khalfa for a sort of debriefing. You might be offered refreshments, bathed again, and given fresh clothes. There may be subtle questions, veiled attempts to gauge the Sultan's mood and your success. You must be careful with your words, revealing little, maintaining an air of modest discretion. Bragging is dangerous, but appearing too dejected might also be misconstrued. It's another tightrope walk. The simple act of returning to your peers is fraught. If you were indeed favoured, a subtle shift will occur in how you are treated. Some who were previously dismissive might now offer a tentative smile or a word of congratulation. Others, who saw you as a friend, might now eye you with a new wariness, a touch of jealousy. Your status, even if unconfirmed, has irrevocably altered. You're no longer just one of the anonymous crowd of novices. You have been singled out. You have walked the path that many dream of, but few achieve. The social dynamics within the harem were incredibly fluid, heavily influenced by proximity to the Sultan. A single night could elevate a woman from obscurity to a position of nascent power and influence, or dash her hopes entirely. Sleep, when it finally comes, is unlikely to be restful. Your mind will continue to race, replaying the night's events, imagining future possibilities, wrestling with anxieties. The dawn that follows this night of destiny feels different. The familiar routines of the harem, the morning ablutions, the communal breakfast, the lessons, might seem mundane, almost surreal, after the intensity of your experience. Yet you must participate. You must maintain your composure. You must act as if this new, profound uncertainty is perfectly normal. In the days that follow, you exist in a state of heightened awareness, a limbo of hope and fear. Every rustle of silks, every unexpected footstep in the corridor, every summons by a kalfar could be the sign. Will you be called again? Will the Sultan send for you specifically? Or will you fade back into the ranks, a fleeting memory in the imperial consciousness? This period of waiting is perhaps one of the most psychologically challenging aspects of harem life for a girl in your position. Historians still argue about the emotional toll this constant uncertainty and competition took on the women, and the coping mechanisms they developed, ranging from intense piety to forming strong female support networks, or even engaging in covert rivalries. A quirky, almost poignant detail is the language of gifts. If the Sultan was particularly pleased, he might send gifts not just to you, but to your supervising kalfa, or even to your mother if she were also in the harem or known to the court. These gifts, a piece of jewellery, a bolt of fine, fabric, a sum of money, were public affirmations of favour, solidifying your new, albeit still precarious, status. The absence of such gifts would also speak volumes. You might find yourself treated with slightly more deference by the kalfas, perhaps given slightly better food, or excused from some of the more menial chores. These are small but significant indicators. Or conversely, if it seems your encounter was a one-off, you might find yourself subtly sidelined, a reminder of the ephemeral nature of imperial favour. The harem is a keenly observant place. Little goes unnoticed. This quiet aftermath, this new dawn, is a period of profound internal and external adjustment. You're no longer the same girl who was led, trembling, to the Sultan's chamber. You have crossed a threshold, seen behind the curtain of ultimate power. Your future, which once seemed a distant, hazy prospect, is now sharply, terrifyingly in focus, though its exact shape remains tantalizingly or agonizingly out of your direct control. You wait, you watch, you hope, and you pray that the seeds planted on your night of destiny will, against all odds, blossom. You're no longer just a face in the crowd, you're a player in the game whether you wanted to be or not. Section 10 explored the uncertain aftermath of your night with the Sultan, the waiting and wondering. Weeks, perhaps even a couple of months have passed since that pivotal encounter. You might have been summoned again, your favour subtly growing, or you might still be in that nerve-wracking limbo, replaying every detail, scrutinising every interaction for a sign. The routines of harem life, the lessons, the chores, the intricate social dances continue, but for you, they are overlaid with a new private anxiety and a burgeoning, almost unbelievable hope. Then, one morning you notice something, a subtle change in your body, a missed monthly cycle, a new and persistent queasiness that isn't just nerves. The realization dawns slowly, then with a breathtaking rush, you might be pregnant. This suspicion throws your world into an entirely new orbit. If your night of destiny was a significant turning point, a potential pregnancy is an earthquake, capable of reshaping your entire existence and, just possibly, the future of the empire. In the Ottoman Harem, bearing a child, particularly a son, for the Sultan is the ultimate achievement, the most direct route to power, security, and elevated status. It is the dream, however remote, that flickers in the heart of many a concubine. So you can imagine the internal monologue. Okay, don't panic, but also maybe panic a little. This is huge. This is level up in the game of harem life, or potentially game over if things go wrong. You would confide your suspicions very discreetly to a trusted Khalfa, or perhaps to one of the harem's experienced midwives or female physicians. Hekim Kaden. This is not news to be shouted from the rooftops, not yet. Secrecy is paramount in these early stages. The harem is a place of intense rivalries, and a confirmed pregnancy, especially if the father is the Sultan, can make you a target for jealousy and intrigue. There are whispers, perhaps apocryphal, perhaps not, of rivals trying to induce miscarriages through subtle means or malicious gossip. It's a high-stakes secret. Once your condition is discreetly confirmed by the medical attendants, the news would be conveyed, with appropriate gravity and discretion, to the Kislar Aza, and through him to the Valide Sultan, and ultimately to the Sultan himself. This is a moment of immense significance. The continuation of the Ottoman dynasty was of paramount political importance, and the birth of new potential heirs was an event of state significance, not just a private family matter. If the Sultan acknowledges the pregnancy as his, and there would usually be little doubt if you had been summoned to his bed, your status within the harem changes dramatically almost overnight. You're no longer just a guzd, one in the eye, or even a favoured Iqbal. You're now a woman carrying a potential heir to the throne, a vessel of dynastic continuity. Your every need will be catered to. You will be moved to more luxurious private quarters, away from the communal dormitories. You will be assigned your own retinue of servants to attend to your comfort and safety. Your diet will be carefully monitored and enriched. You will be excused from all strenuous duties. Think of it as the ultimate harem VIP package, all-inclusive with extra security. The Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, will likely take a keen personal interest in your well-being. Her own power and influence are intrinsically linked to the success of her son and the continuation of his line. She will want to ensure the safety and health of her potential grandchild. This can be a source of great comfort and protection, but also of intense scrutiny. She's like the ultimate mother-in-law, but with an empire at her back. Your relationship with other women in the harem will also shift. Some may genuinely rejoice for you, especially those who are your friends or allies. Others will be consumed by envy. Those who also harbour hopes of conceiving a child by the Sultan will see you as a successful rival. The Kadıns, the official consorts who have already borne children, might view you with a mixture of condescension, you're still new to this, and wariness, your potential competition for their own son's future prospects. Historians still argue whether the intense focus on childbearing was empowering for harem women, granting them status and security, or if it reduced them primarily to their reproductive capacity, objectifying them further. It was likely a complex reality, offering both immense opportunity and immense pressure. A quirky but vital aspect of this period would be the heightened security around you. The risk of accidents, a slip on a wet floor, a tainted dish of food, was taken very seriously, whether these fears were always justified or were products of the harem's often paranoid atmosphere. Your food might be prepared separately and even tasted by someone else first. Your movements would be more restricted, ostensibly for your own protection. You're basically living in a gilded bubble, but a bubble designed to protect the precious cargo you carry. The months of pregnancy are a period of waiting, of anticipation, but also of continued education, albeit of a different kind. You would be instructed in the specifics of childcare, according to Ottoman courtly traditions. You would also be subtly coached on how to further cultivate the Sultan's favour, how to ensure your child, if it is a son, is seen as a worthy potential heir. The prospect of childbirth itself is, of course, attended by all the usual anxieties, amplified by the immense pressure and the relatively primitive, by modern standards, obstetric care, despite the skill of harem midwives. But overriding the fear is the immense hope. A healthy child, especially a son, could secure your position for life, elevating you to the esteemed rank of Haseki Sultan. If you are the mother of his firstborn son, or a particularly beloved son, or at least a highly respected Kadıns, a new heartbeat within you signifies not just new life, but a new chapter in your own, a chapter that could lead to unimaginable heights of influence and prestige within the Ottoman world. The fate of an empire might just rest on that tiny, fluttering pulse. Section 11 left you on the cusp of a monumental life change, a confirmed pregnancy by the Sultan, elevating your status and surrounding you with both care and peril. Now, imagine the culmination of those 9 months of anticipation, anxiety, and meticulous care. The day of labour arrives. This is not a quiet, private affair as one might imagine. The birth of a potential heir, or even a princess who could be used for strategic alliances, is an event of harem-wide, and indeed palace-wide significance. Skilled midwives, female physicians, and trusted kalfas will attend you. Prayers will be offered, and the atmosphere will be thick with a mixture of hope and tension. Let's say, for the sake of our story, that after a difficult but ultimately successful labour, you hear the most wonderful sound, the strong, healthy cry of your newborn child. And then the announcement, perhaps whispered first, then confirmed with joy. It's a Shahzad, a prince, or perhaps a beautiful sultan, a princess. While a son typically brings greater immediate prestige in the dynastic game, a daughter is also a cherished arrival, a princess of the Ottoman bloodline. For now, let's imagine you've borne a healthy son. The harem erupts, or at least the news ripples through it, with incredible speed, causing a wave of excitement, and for some perhaps a fresh pang of envy or recalculation of their own ambitions. You're now a mother, and not just any mother, but the mother of an Ottoman prince. Your world, already transformed by pregnancy, shifts on its axis once again. The immediate postpartum period is one of recovery for you, but also of celebration. The Sultan will be informed, and he will likely visit to see his child. This is a crucial moment. His acknowledgement and pleasure are paramount. Gifts will be lavished, upon you, upon the child, upon the midwives and attendants. The birth of a prince was often celebrated with public festivities, distribution of arms, and announcements throughout the empire underscoring the dynastic importance of the event. You're now afforded a new level of respect and a host of privileges. You will have your own suite of rooms, more opulent than before, staffed with wet nurses, hatun, servants, and your own kalfas to manage your household. Your child will have his own retinue from birth. You're no longer simply a concubine, you are the mother of a Shahzadeh, a title that commands deference. If you are the mother of his first son, or a particularly favoured son, you might even be elevated to the rank of Haseki Sultan, a position of considerable power and influence, second only to the Valide Sultan in the harem hierarchy. Even if not a Haseki, as a Kadıns Efendi, a mother of a prince or princess, your standing is secure. The joys of motherhood are universal, and you experience them intensely. The fierce, protective love for this tiny being, the wonder of his first smile, the comfort of holding him close. These are moments of pure, unadulterated happiness, a deep human connection that transcends the politics and pressures of the harem. You spend hours with your child, nursing him, though wet nurses are also heavily involved, especially in the early days, to ensure you recover and can potentially conceive again sooner. Singing to him, simply watching him sleep. It's a profound emotional anchor in a world that can often feel like a turbulent sea. However, harem motherhood also comes with unique pressures and anxieties. The health and well-being of your child are of paramount concern, not just to you, but to the dynasty. Illness in infancy is a constant fear. You become hyper-aware of any potential threat, any draft, any cough from an attendant. The responsibility weighs heavily. You're not just raising a child, you're raising a potential future sultan, or a princess who will be a pawn in imperial marriage strategies. Then there's the matter of succession. If there are other princes born to other mothers, an undercurrent of rivalry is almost inevitable. The Ottoman practice of fraternal succession, and later primogeniture, though not always strictly adhered to, especially in earlier periods, meant that all sons of the Sultan were potential heirs, leading to intense competition between their mothers, each hoping her son would one day ascend the throne. This could, tragically, lead to the practice of fratricide upon a new sultan's accession, to eliminate rivals, a brutal reality that would cast a long shadow over your son's life and your own peace of mind. This is one of those less than sparkly details that doesn't make it into the tourist brochures for Topkapi Palace. Your primary role now becomes focused on your child and, crucially, on maintaining the Sultan's favour, both for yourself and for your son. You must ensure your son is seen by his father, that he is well educated, well behaved, and presents as a worthy potential successor. You become your son's fiercest advocate, his first and most important political advisor, even from a very young age. Historians still argue about the extent to which mothers of princes actively engaged in political manoeuvring on behalf of their sons, or if their influence was more subtle and domestically focused. Evidence suggests many were deeply involved. A quirky aspect of harem motherhood was the creation of a sort of mommy network, though fraught with its own politics. Other mothers of royal children, the Valide Sultan, the ultimate imperial grandmother, and experienced Kalfas would offer advice, share experiences and form alliances, or rivalries. You would learn from them, navigate their expectations, and try to secure your son's place within this complex family dynamic. Think of it as the most exclusive, high-stakes PTA meeting ever. Life becomes a delicate balancing act, cherishing the private joys of motherhood while navigating the public pressures of your new role. You're training your son, subtly and overtly, for a life of immense privilege but also immense danger. You're managing your household, cultivating your relationship with the Sultan, and always, always being vigilant. The harem, which was once your training ground, is now your arena, and your child is the most precious prize you fight to protect and promote. The stakes have never been higher. Section 12 saw you embrace the joys and navigate the unique pressures of harem motherhood, having borne a child for the Sultan. Your status has undeniably risen. You have a comfortable suite of rooms, servants, and the respect that comes with being the mother of a Shahzadi or a Sultan. But in the competitive ecosystem of the imperial harem, resting on your laurels is not an option. The birth of one child, even a son, is a significant achievement, but sustained favour and increased official titles require continuous effort, strategic thinking, and a healthy dose of luck. You're climbing a ladder, and each rung is slick with ambition and intrigue. Your primary goal, beyond the well-being of your child, is to maintain and deepen your relationship with the Sultan. This isn't just about romantic affection, though that might play a part. It's about ensuring he continues to value your company, your counsel, if he seeks it, and your loyalty. You strive to be more than just the mother of his child. You aim to be a companion, a confidant, someone whose presence he actively seeks out. This means continuing to cultivate your intellect, your charm, and your understanding of his moods and interests. Remember all those lessons in music, poetry, and conversation? They are still very much in play. You're not just trying to win a rose on a reality show, you're trying to secure a lifelong contract with the CEO of an empire. Gifts are still a language of favour. You might receive more lavish presents, jewels, fine furs, income-generating properties, timars or has, which not only enhance your personal wealth and comfort, but also serve as public declarations of your standing. Conversely, you might also present thoughtful, carefully chosen gifts to the Sultan, demonstrating your devotion and your understanding of his tastes. It's a delicate dance of giving and receiving, all freighted with meaning. Official titles are the concrete markers of your ascent. If you have borne a son, you are likely a Cardin Effendi, or Cardin. There were typically 4 official Cardins at any one time, though this number could sometimes vary. If you are particularly beloved, or if your son is the eldest or deemed especially promising, you might aspire to the title of Haseki Sultan. The title of Haseki Sultan, first created for Hurrem Sultan by Suleiman the Magnificent, signified a unique and powerful position for a consort, often granting her precedence over other concubines and even other Kadıns. This is a major step up the ladder, bringing with it a larger household, a more substantial income, and greater influence within the harem and sometimes even beyond. Achieving and maintaining such a title requires constant vigilance. You must manage your household efficiently, present yourself with dignity and grace, and cultivate a reputation for piety and good conduct. The Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, is a key figure whose approval is crucial. Earning her respect and trust can significantly smooth your path. She is the gatekeeper to much of the harem's internal power structure, and her favour can make you or break you. If she sees you as a loyal, sensible and supportive presence for her son, she is more likely to champion your cause. Displease her, and you might find your access to the Sultan mysteriously curtailed. You also need to be politically astute, even if your sphere of influence is primarily within the harem walls, understanding the shifting alliances, the subtle power plays, and the personalities of key figures, other Kadıns, influential eunuchs, even ministers of state who might interact with the harem via the Valide Sultan or the Kızlar Asa, is essential. You're not just looking out for yourself, but for your child's future prospects. Historians still argue about the precise mechanisms through which harem women, particularly Hasekis and Valides, exerted political influence, whether through pillow talk, direct counsel, patronage networks, or by controlling access to the Sultan. It was likely a combination of all these, wielded with varying degrees of subtlety and success. One quirky, yet important aspect of climbing this ladder is managing your brand. Yes, even in the 16th or 17th century Ottoman harem, your reputation for beauty, intelligence, piety, loyalty, or even for being a fierce protector of your children, is constantly being shaped and perceived. You want to cultivate an image that is both appealing to the Sultan and respected, or perhaps healthily feared, within the harem. This involves careful management of your words, your actions, and even the conduct of your household staff. The competition remains fierce. Other women are also vying for the Sultan's attention, also hoping to bear children, also seeking to climb the ladder. You must be wary of rivals who might seek to undermine you through gossip, intrigue, or by currying favour with those in power. It's a constant chess game, where every move is calculated. You're not just playing for points, you're playing for keeps. As your influence grows, you might gain control over more resources, allowing you to dispense patronage, offering positions within your household, bestowing gifts, or interceding on behalf of others. This builds a network of loyalty, a group of people who are indebted to you and who can provide support and information. This is a crucial element of power consolidation. The ultimate goal for many after securing the position of Kadın or Haseki is to see their son ascend the throne. If that happens and you outlive the Sultan, you achieve the pinnacle of female power in the Ottoman Empire, the title of Valide Sultan, the mother of the reigning Sultan. This is the top of the ladder, a position of immense authority, wealth and influence, effectively making you the most powerful woman in the empire and one of the most powerful people, period. But that is a distant, glittering peak. For now, you focus on the rung in front of you, consolidating your position, ensuring your child thrives, and always striving for the Sultan's continued favour. Each smile from him, each thoughtful conversation, each new privilege granted, is another secure foothold on the ascent. Section 13 described your efforts to climb the harem's ladder seeking sustained favour and official titles. This ascent, however, is not a solitary climb up a well-maintained staircase. It's more like navigating a treacherous mountain path in the dark with loose stones, hidden crevasses, and the occasional rival attempting to give you a not-so-gentle nudge into the abyss. The Ottoman harem, for all its opulence and refined culture, was a hotbed of political intrigue, and learning to survive its deadly dance was as crucial as mastering the lute or embroidering silk. Your life, your position, and most importantly the future of your child, depend on your ability to play this dangerous game. The moment you began to gain favour, and especially after you bore a child for the Sultan, you became a player in the harem's intricate political landscape, whether you intended to or not. Other women, rival Kadıns, ambitious iqbals, or even established Hasekis who see you or your son as a threat to their own standing or their own children's prospects, may actively work against you. This isn't usually overt cloak and dagger stuff, though whispers of poisonings and accidents certainly form part of the harem's darker lore. More often it's a war of whispers, of subtle sabotage, of carefully planted rumours designed to erode the Sultan's trust in you, or to damage your reputation. Remember that harem gossip network we talked about? It can be weaponized with devastating efficiency. You learn to cultivate sources of information, your own loyal servants, kalfas who are allied with you, even eunuchs who might see an advantage in supporting your cause, become your eyes and ears. Knowing what is being said about you, who is meeting with whom, and what new alliances are forming is vital. It's like having your own personal intelligence agency, albeit one that runs on baklava and promises of future patronage rather than high-tech gadgets. You need to be one step ahead, or at least not 3 steps behind. One of the primary battlegrounds is access to the Sultan. If a rival can subtly limit your opportunities to see him, to speak with him, to remind him of your charm and intelligence, your influence can wane. This might involve ensuring her own child is presented to the Sultan at a more opportune moment, or subtly suggesting to the Valide Sultan that you are unwell or otherwise occupied. You, in turn, must find ways to counteract these moves, to ensure your presence is felt, your voice heard. The control of physical access to the ruler has always been a key component of courtly power, and in the harem, this was managed by a complex interplay of figures including the Valide Sultan, the Kızlar Asa, and favoured consorts themselves. Another tactic is to undermine your relationship with powerful allies, particularly the Valide Sultan. A rival might try to portray you as disrespectful, overly ambitious, or a bad influence on your child, hoping to turn the Sultan's mother against you. Maintaining a strong, positive relationship with the Valide is therefore a key defensive strategy. You must demonstrate unwavering loyalty and respect to her, seeking her counsel and showing her deference, even if you privately disagree with her. She's the queen bee, and you do not want to get on her bad side. Then there's the risk to your child. In an environment where succession could be a matter of life and death for the princes, protecting your son from harm, both physical and reputational, becomes your paramount concern. You scrutinize his food, his attendance, his playmates. You try to shield him from the more overt harem intrigues while simultaneously preparing him for the realities of his position. Historians still argue about the prevalence and nature of plots against young princes within the harem, whether they were common occurrences or exaggerated fears fueled by the high-stakes environment of dynastic succession. Regardless, the perceived threat was very real to the mothers. You also learn the art of subtle offence, not just defence. This doesn't necessarily mean plotting someone else's downfall, but it might involve strategically highlighting your own virtues or your child's accomplishments at an opportune moment. It could mean forming alliances with other women who share a common rival, or subtly exposing the machinations of another to someone in authority. It's a delicate balance. You don't want to appear malicious or overly aggressive, as that could backfire spectacularly. Think of it as playing chess, where you're always thinking several moves ahead, anticipating your opponent's strategies, and occasionally sacrificing a pawn to protect your queen, or, in this case, your prince. A quirky but potentially life-saving skill is learning to read the silence. Sometimes what isn't being said or who isn't present at a particular gathering can be more informative than overt actions. A sudden coolness from a previously friendly Kalfa, an unexplained absence of a rival from court functions. These can be signals of shifting tides, of plots brewing or failing. Loyalty is a precious commodity, and you cultivate it carefully. Your personal servants, those who share your private chambers and attend to your daily needs, become your closest confidants and your first line of defence. Ensuring their loyalty through kindness, fair treatment, and appropriate rewards is crucial. A disgruntled servant can be a dangerous source of leaks, or even an agent for your rivals. This constant undercurrent of intrigue takes a psychological toll. The need for perpetual vigilance, the awareness that even a seemingly innocuous comment could be twisted and used against you, creates a stressful environment. You learn to wear a mask of serene composure, even when your mind is racing with anxieties or plotting your next move. Finding moments of genuine peace or trust becomes increasingly difficult, but all the more precious. You might find solace in religious devotion, in the company of your child, or in the quiet moments spent on your own artistic pursuits, a temporary escape from the relentless pressures. Surviving this deadly dance requires intelligence, resilience, patience, and an almost preternatural ability to read people and situations. It's about knowing when to be assertive and when to be yielding, when to speak up and when to hold your tongue, who to trust and who to watch with a wary eye. It's a full-time job with the highest possible stakes. Your success isn't just about personal ambition, it's about survival in a world where one misstep can mean ruin for you and those you hold dear. Section 14 plunged you into the perilous world of harem intrigue, a constant dance of survival and ambition. You've navigated rivalries, protected your child, and solidified your position as a favoured Kadıns, or perhaps even a powerful Haseki Sultan. You've played the game masterfully, with intelligence, grace, and no small amount of luck. Now, let's imagine the ultimate culmination of all your efforts, the scenario that represents the apex of female power within the Ottoman Empire. Your son ascends to the throne, and you become the Valide Sultan, the Queen Mother. This transition is often precipitated by a period of great upheaval and sorrow, the death of the reigning Sultan, your husband or partner. While his passing might open the door to your son's accession, it is also a moment of genuine grief and uncertainty. The palace enters a period of mourning, and behind the scenes, a flurry of activity occurs as the succession is secured. If your son is the designated heir, or if he successfully outmaneuvers other potential claimants, a process that, in earlier centuries, could tragically involve the execution of his brothers to prevent civil war, a brutal practice known as fratricide, as we've touched upon. Then a new era dawns. The day your son is girded with the sword of Osman, the Ottoman equivalent of a coronation, is the day your own status transforms utterly. You are no longer just a consort, however favoured. You are the Valide Sultan, the mother of the Padishah. This title elevates you to the highest rank a woman can achieve. You move into the Valide Sultan's extensive private apartments within the harem, a luxurious suite of rooms that becomes the new centre of harem power. The Valide Sultan's quarters were often lavishly decorated and strategically located, symbolising her preeminent position and providing her with the space to manage her vast household and conduct her affairs. As Valide Sultan, you wield immense influence. You're the head of the imperial harem, responsible for its administration, the discipline of its residents, and the education of new concubines. The Qizlar Arsa, though powerful in his own right, often answers to you. You control a vast household, with hundreds, perhaps thousands of servants and attendants. You manage enormous wealth, often derived from dedicated land revenues, customs duties and properties, and pashmakluk, or slipper money. This financial independence gives you considerable power to dispense patronage, fund charitable endowments, vakifs, and even undertake large-scale public building projects like mosques, hospitals and fountains, which enhances your public image and leaves a lasting legacy. Think of it as being the CEO, CFO, and head of HR for the most exclusive and influential sorority in the world, with an added bonus of being the Emperor's mom. Your relationship with your son, the new Sultan, is, of course, central to your power. He's likely to defer to your wisdom and experience, especially if he is young or new to the burdens of rule. You become his closest advisor, his most trusted confidant. You have unparalleled access to him, influencing his decisions on matters of state, appointments to high office, and even foreign policy, albeit often indirectly. Your pillow talk now carries the weight of an Empress Dowager. Historians still argue about the precise extent of the Valide Sultan's political power, with some seeing them as de facto co-regents, especially during the Sultanate of Women in the 16th and 17th centuries, while others emphasise the informal and personal nature of their influence. Regardless, their sway was undeniable. You play a crucial role in selecting and training the women who will enter your son's harem, ensuring they are suitable companions and potential mothers of the next generation of princes. You guide your son in his choices of consorts, subtly steering him towards alliances that might benefit the dynasty or your own political aims. You are, in effect, the ultimate matchmaker with imperial stakes. The Valide Sultan also acts as a stabilising force within the dynasty and the court. She is a symbol of continuity, a link to the previous reign, and often a mediator in disputes between factions within the palace or the government. Her experience and long tenure within the harem give her an unparalleled understanding of its complex dynamics and the personalities involved. Daily life as Valide Sultan is a whirlwind of activity. You receive reports from your Kalfas and the Qizlar Arsa, oversee the harem's finances, meet with petitioners, correspond with powerful figures outside the palace, sometimes even with foreign queens or ambassadors' wives through intermediaries, and spend considerable time with your son, the Sultan. You also preside over harem ceremonies and entertainments. It's a demanding role, requiring immense energy, intelligence, and political acumen. Remember those long days of lessons as an Acemi? They were, in a way, preparing you for this ultimate leadership position. A quirky, but significant aspect of being Valide Sultan is your public persona. While still largely confined to the harem, your actions, particularly your charitable works and pious endowments, are widely known and contribute to the legitimacy and prestige of the dynasty. You become a figure of public veneration, a maternal symbol for the empire. Of course, even at this pinnacle of power, there are challenges. You must constantly guard against those who might seek to undermine your influence with your son. You may face opposition from powerful viziers or military commanders who resent female interference in state affairs, and you carry the heavy responsibility of guiding a ruler, knowing that his failures or successes will reflect upon you and the entire dynasty. The journey from an anonymous girl in the Koğuş to the Valide Sultan is an extraordinary one, a testament to resilience, intelligence, ambition, and no small amount of good fortune. It is a transformation from a captive or a purchased slave, in many historical cases, to one of the most powerful women in the world. You have not only survived the harem, you have conquered it. Your word is law within these gilded walls. Your influence stretches far beyond them, and your legacy will be etched in the annals of the Ottoman Empire. You are the matriarch, the power behind the throne, the ultimate embodiment of female achievement in a world largely dominated by men. Sweet dreams are made of this. Indeed, if this involves navigating a lifetime of Byzantine intrigue and surviving. Section 15 painted the grand vista of achieving the ultimate harem rank, Valide Sultan. But not every woman reaches such dizzying heights. For many, even those who achieve the status of Kadın or Iqbal and bear children for the Sultan, the passage of time brings with it a different set of realities. Youth and beauty, so prized in the harem's initial selection process and in attracting the Sultan's gaze, are inevitably fleeting. As you age within the harem walls, your role, your relationships and your outlook on life begin to shift, sometimes subtly, sometimes profoundly. The vibrant colours of your prime might soften into more muted, though perhaps no less dignified shades. If you are fortunate enough to bear children, particularly sons, your focus naturally shifts more and more towards their upbringing, their education and their prospects. Your own romantic relationship with the Sultan may transition into one of comfortable companionship, mutual respect, or perhaps a polite distance as his attention turns to younger women entering the harem. This is often an accepted, if sometimes melancholic, part of the harem life cycle. Your value becomes increasingly tied to your role as a mother and a wise elder within the community, rather than primarily as an object of desire. It's like graduating from being the star ingenue to playing the respected character actress, still vital to the production, but in a different capacity. As your sons grow, especially if they are Shahzadis, with a claim to the throne, your anxieties might increase. You watch them navigate the dangerous currents of court life, always aware of the potential rivalries and the ever-present shadow of the succession struggle. You become their staunchest supporter, their behind-the-scenes advisor, your life's ambition now largely invested in their future success and survival. Your own personal ambitions may recede as you pour your energy into promoting your offspring. If you bore daughters, your focus will be on securing advantageous marriages for them. Ottoman princesses, sultans, were often married to high-ranking viziers, pashas, or other powerful figures in the empire. These marriages were crucial political alliances, strengthening the dynasty's ties with the ruling elite. As their mother, you would play a significant role in these arrangements, ensuring your daughters are well matched and that the alliances benefit your family and by extension your own standing. The marriages of Ottoman princesses were highly strategic state affairs, often negotiated by the Valide Sultan or the girls' mothers in consultation with the Sultan and Grand Vizier. Within the harem hierarchy, age and experience can bring a different kind of status. Even if you are no longer in the Sultan's active favour, as a long-serving Kadın or a respected elder, you accumulate a certain gravitas. Younger women might look to you for guidance, for stories of the past, for advice on navigating harem life. You become a repository of institutional memory. You might take on a mentoring role for new Acemi, much like the Kalfas who once trained you. There's a certain satisfaction in passing on your hard-won wisdom, a sense of continuity. Remember those stern Kalfas from your early days? You might just be turning into one, hopefully one of the kinder, wiser ones. Your daily life might become quieter, more routine. You might have more time for your personal pursuits. Perhaps religious devotion becomes a greater source of comfort. or you dedicate more time to charitable activities, managing your own modest endowments, or pursuing artistic hobbies like calligraphy, poetry, or intricate embroidery. Now for your own pleasure rather than as a requirement. The opulent chambers that once felt like a stage for high drama might now feel more like a comfortable, if still confined, home. However, the harem can also be a lonely place for an aging woman, especially if her children have grown and left, sons to provincial governorships, daughters to their husbands' households, or if she never achieved a prominent position. The vibrancy and constant influx of youth can be a stark reminder of what has passed. Friendships with other women of similar age and standing become even more crucial, offering companionship and shared understanding. Historians still argue about the emotional well-being of older women in the harem. Were they generally respected and cared for, or did they face neglect and marginalization once their youth and reproductive capacity faded? The reality likely varied greatly depending on individual circumstances, personality, and the specific era. A quirky and rather poignant aspect of aging in the harem is the inventory of memories. You possess a treasure trove of experiences, of witnessed events, of secrets kept. You've seen sultans come and go, favourites rise and fall, great celebrations and profound sorrows. You're a living archive of the harem's intimate history. These memories might be a source of pride, of sadness, or simply of a deep, quiet understanding of the complexities of human nature and power. There's also the looming question of what happens when your sultan passes away. If your son does not ascend the throne, your position becomes more precarious. The new sultan's mother will become the Valide sultan, and the harem's power dynamics will shift dramatically. Often, the consorts and children of the deceased sultan, who are not in the direct line of succession, would be moved to the old palace, Eski Saray, a less glamorous residence, sometimes referred to as the Palace of Tears. While life there was not necessarily one of privation, it was a significant step down from the splendours of Topkapi, a form of gilded retirement, or for some, a kind of exile. The fading light of your own prominence within the harem is a gradual process, an acceptance of the changing seasons of life. You've played your part in the grand drama. You've loved, lost, schemed, survived. You've witnessed history from a unique, privileged, and often perilous vantage point. The echoes of your youth, the music, the laughter, the whispers of ambition, still linger in the marble halls, but now they are overlaid with a patina of experience and, perhaps, a measure of peace. You've earned your rest, even if it's within walls that have defined your entire existence. Section 16 explored the realities of aging within the harem, a gradual shift in roles and expectations. But not every woman remained within the Topkapi Palace walls for her entire life, even if she didn't become Valide Sultan, or wasn't relegated to the old palace upon a sultan's death. There was another path, a different kind of graduation from the harem, manumission and marriage to a high-ranking official outside the palace. This was a route chosen for or by a significant number of concubines, offering a different kind of future, one with its own set of opportunities and challenges. This practice, known as chikma, typically applied to women who had served in the harem for a number of years, perhaps had caught the sultan's eye at some point but hadn't borne him children, or were simply deemed suitable for marriage by the Valide Sultan, or the sultan himself. It could also be a reward for loyal service, or a way to gracefully retire women who were no longer in the bloom of youth, or in active favour. It wasn't usually the Acemi or very young novices who were married off, but rather women with some harem experience and polish. Think of it as an honourable discharge, with a wedding ring and a new life chapter as your severance package. The process would be managed by the harem administration, often under the direction of the Valide Sultan, or the Kislar Asa. Suitable husbands would be identified from among the ranks of pashas, viziers, provincial governors, or other influential military or administrative officials. These were not love matches in the modern sense, they were strategic alliances, designed to bind these powerful men more closely to the Sultan and the imperial household. A wife who had been raised and educated in the imperial harem brought with her a certain prestige, a connection to the court, and an understanding of its ways. The marriages of former harem women to Ottoman officials served to extend the palace's influence into the broader administrative and political elite, creating a network of loyalty and shared culture. For you, if this path were chosen, it would mean a significant life change. You would be formally manumitted, legally freed from your enslaved status if that was your original condition, as it was for many harem women. This was a crucial legal step. You would then be provided with a substantial dowry, chihaz, by the palace, consisting of money, clothing, jewels, household furnishings, and sometimes even enslaved servants of your own, to ensure you entered your new marriage with appropriate status and resources. The palace was essentially setting you up for success in your new role. No going away empty-handed here. This was a gilded send-off. The wedding itself might be a grand affair, depending on the rank of your new husband, funded and orchestrated by the palace. It was a public demonstration of the Sultan's favour and the importance of the alliance. You would leave the confines of Topkapi, a place that had been your entire world for years, perhaps decades, and step into a new life, with a new home, a new husband, and a new set of social expectations. It's like moving from a very exclusive, very intense boarding school directly into an arranged marriage, with the school governor's most promising protégé. Life as the wife of an Ottoman grandee would be very different from harem life. You would have your own household to manage, though likely on a smaller scale than the imperial harem. You would have more personal freedom in some respects. You wouldn't be under the constant direct scrutiny of the Valide Sultan or the Kızlar Asa. However, you would still be expected to live a relatively secluded life, appropriate for a high-status Muslim woman of the era, managing the domestic sphere and upholding your husband's honour and reputation. Your harem education, your knowledge of etiquette, music, literature, and perhaps even your subtle understanding of politics would be valuable assets in your new role. You would be expected to be a gracious hostess, within the confines of gender-segregated social norms, an intelligent companion to your husband and a capable manager of his household. Your connection to the imperial harem, even after leaving it, could also be a source of influence for your husband, a channel of communication, or a way to gain favour at court. Historians still argue about the degree of ongoing connection and influence these manumitted harem women maintained with the imperial harem, and how this impacted their husbands' careers. A quirky aspect of this transition might be the adjustment to a normal, albeit still elite household, after the unique environment of the Topkapi Harem. The scale would be different, the rules subtly altered. You would be the principal lady of your own domain, which could be both liberating and daunting. You're no longer one of many vying for attention. You are the one, at least within your new home. For some women, this path offered a welcome opportunity for a more conventional family life, the chance to have children with their husband, and to experience a degree of autonomy they might not have found within the palace walls. It could be a path to personal fulfillment and security, outside the intense spotlight and competition of the Sultan's harem. For others, leaving the familiar world of the harem, with its established routines and relationships, might have been tinged with sadness or apprehension. It was, after all, the only life many of them had known since girlhood. This practice of marrying off concubines also served a practical purpose for the harem. It managed the population within its walls, preventing overcrowding and ensuring a turnover that allowed for the constant influx of new, young women. It was a system that, from the perspective of the Ottoman dynasty, was both pragmatic and politically astute. For you, the individual woman, it was a door opening out of the gilded cage, leading not to absolute freedom in the modern sense, but to a different kind of gilded cage, perhaps one with a slightly wider garden and a different set of rules. It was a new chapter, a chance to build a different life, still within the orbit of Ottoman power, but on your own terms, to a greater extent than before. Section 17 described the path of Chikma, where harem women were manumitted and married off to high-ranking officials, stepping beyond the Topkapi Palace walls into a new life. Now, let's take a moment to imagine what that life might actually look like for you. Once the wedding festivities have died down and you've settled into your new role as the wife of, say, a powerful pasha or a learned Qadi, judge. You've traded the labyrinthine corridors of the imperial harem for a private mansion, perhaps in a fashionable district of Istanbul, or even in a provincial capital if your husband is a governor. The scale is different, but the expectations of propriety and household management remain. Your new home, while likely opulent by any ordinary standard, would feel distinct from the vastness of Topkapi. You would be the Hanım Efendi, the lady of the house, with your own staff of servants, some of whom might have come with you as part of your dowry, others hired by your husband. You'd be responsible for overseeing the domestic sphere, managing the household budget within the funds allocated by your husband, directing the servants, ensuring the smooth running of the kitchens, the laundry, and the general upkeep of the residence. Remember all those chores and administrative tasks you either performed or observed in the harem. That experience now comes in very handy. You're not just a pretty face, you're a qualified domestic CEO. Your days would be structured, though perhaps with more personal autonomy than you had in the harem. You might spend time on needlework, reading, if you have access to books, or corresponding with female relatives and friends. Religious observance would continue to be an important part of daily life. While you wouldn't be attending lessons anymore, the cultural accomplishments you honed in the harem, your knowledge of music, poetry, and refined conversation would still be valued, primarily for entertaining your husband in private, or for enriching the cultural life within your own female quarters. Social life would be within the accepted norms of Ottoman society, which meant largely gender segregated. You would receive female visitors, the wives and daughters of your husband's colleagues or other prominent families in your haremlik, the private women's section of the house similar to the imperial harem but on a much smaller scale. These gatherings would involve refreshments, conversation, perhaps music or poetry recitations. It's a different kind of social politicking, building alliances and gathering information within the female social sphere, which could indirectly benefit your husband's career. You'd be an expert at this, having graduated with honours from the Topkapi School of Subtle Social Manoeuvring. Your relationship with your husband is, of course, central. These were arranged marriages, but affection and companionship could certainly develop. Your harem upbringing, with its emphasis on pleasing and being an agreeable companion, would theoretically equip you well for this. He would likely value your connection to the imperial court, perhaps subtly seeking your insights or using your past associations to his advantage. You are a tangible link to the centre of power. The degree of influence wives had over their powerful husbands in Ottoman society is a subject of ongoing historical discussion, but it's clear that many women, particularly those with harem backgrounds, were not mere passive figures. One of the most significant differences from life in the imperial harem would be the possibility of raising your own children with your husband in a more conventional family structure by the standards of the time. The intense dynastic pressures surrounding children in the Sultan's harem would be absent. While you'd still desire children for personal fulfillment and to secure your position within your husband's family, the stakes wouldn't involve the potential succession to the imperial throne. This could allow for a more relaxed, perhaps more personally rewarding experience of motherhood. A quirky adjustment might be the relative quiet and smaller scale of your new environment. After years in the bustling, populous imperial harem, with its hundreds of women, eunuchs and servants, a private mansion, even a grand one, might feel surprisingly empty at first. The constant undercurrent of high-stakes drama would be replaced by more mundane domestic concerns. It's like going from living in Times Square during New Year's Eve permanently to a quiet suburban cul-de-sac, a big change in ambient noise and stress levels. You might also have more opportunities to engage in charitable activities on a local level, perhaps supporting a neighbourhood mosque, a school, or helping less fortunate families. This was a traditional role for high-status women and a way to earn respect and social merit. However, it's important not to romanticize this freedom. You are still living in a patriarchal society with significant constraints on women's lives. Your husband had ultimate authority. Your movements outside the home would be limited and likely require his permission, or involve being chaperoned and veiled. But within those boundaries, you could carve out a life of dignity, comfort, and perhaps considerable informal influence. You would likely maintain some contact with the imperial harem, perhaps through letters to former friends or kalfas, or through your husband's official dealings with the palace. You might even be invited back for important celebrations or ceremonies, though your status would be that of a respected visitor, the wife of an official rather than an insider. These visits could be bittersweet, stirring memories of your former life. For those who left the imperial harem through Chikma, life beyond Topkapi's walls offered a different trajectory. It was a life with its own riches and its own limitations, a chance to build a family and a household in a new context, forever marked by the unique experiences and education received within the Sultan's gilded cage. You would carry the harem with you, in your manners, your knowledge, and your memories. A woman shaped by one extraordinary institution, now making her way in the wider, yet still circumscribed world of Ottoman elite society. Section 18 explored the lives of harem women who were married off, finding new roles beyond Topkapi's walls. But whether a woman remained within the imperial harem, eventually becoming a powerful Valide sultan, or was married out to an influential official, or even if she lived a quieter life as a long-serving gedikli, one striking aspect to consider is the surprising and often underestimated influence these hidden hands wielded. Confined they may have been, and operating within a system that fundamentally objectified them, yet harem women, particularly those in the upper echelons, found ways to exert considerable power, leaving lasting marks on Ottoman politics, culture and society. The most direct form of influence, of course, was through their relationship with the Sultan. A beloved Haseki or an astute Kadıns could sway the Sultan's opinions on appointments, policies, or even military campaigns through pillow talk, private conversations where she could offer counsel, make requests, or subtly guide his thinking. This wasn't always about grand strategy. It could be advocating for a particular candidate for a governorship, seeking a pardon for someone, or drawing his attention to an injustice. The Sultanate of Women, Kadına Saltanatı, a period roughly from the late 16th to the mid-17th century, saw a succession of powerful Haseki sultans and Valide sultans who exerted extraordinary political influence, sometimes effectively ruling the empire as regents for young or incompetent sultans. Figures like Hürrem Sultan, Kösem Sultan, and Turhan Hatice Sultan became legendary for their political acumen and power. The Valide Sultan, as we've discussed, was in a prime position to influence her ruling son. She controlled access to him, managed the vast imperial harem which was a political entity in itself, and often had her own network of informants and allies throughout the bureaucracy and military. Her experience, her maternal authority, and her financial independence gave her significant leverage. She could advise her son, warn him against certain factions, promote her favoured officials, and act as a mediator in times of crisis. She was, in many ways, the eminence grise of the Ottoman court. Beyond direct political intervention, harem women wielded power through patronage. As they acquired wealth, through stipends, gifts, and control of income-generating properties, they could support artists, poets, and scholars, shaping cultural trends. More significantly, they established vast charitable endowments, or vakıfs. These endowments funded the construction and maintenance of mosques, schools, medresas, hospitals, darüşşafas, public fountains, sebils, soup kitchens, imarets, and caravanserai. These public works were not only acts of piety, but also powerful statements of status and influence, allowing harem women to leave a visible, lasting legacy on the urban landscape of Istanbul and other cities. Think of it as a very effective form of PR, but with actual tangible benefits for the populace. The Haseki Hürrem Sultan Complex or the Yeni Valide Mosque are just two famous examples of such grand architectural legacies. Their role in dynastic politics was, of course, central. The bearing and raising of princes was their primary function, but their involvement didn't stop there. They managed their sons' households when they were sent as provincial governors, maintained correspondence with them, and fiercely advocated for their succession. They were key players in the often dangerous Game of Thrones. Even women who were married out of the harem, as discussed in Section 18, could exert a form of indirect influence. Their harem education and their ongoing, if sometimes tenuous, connections to the palace could be assets to their husbands' careers. They might act as informal channels of communication, or provide their husbands with valuable insights into court politics. They were part of a wider network that connected the imperial centre with the provincial elite. A quirky, less direct form of influence was in setting trends in fashion, etiquette, and lifestyle within elite circles. The standards of beauty, the preferred styles of dress, the types of music and poetry favoured in the imperial harem often percolated out into wider Ottoman society, at least among the wealthy. The harem was, in a sense, the ultimate finishing school and trendsetter. Furthermore, the very existence of the harem and the significant resources dedicated to it had a profound economic impact. It was a major consumer of luxury goods, silks, jewels, perfumes, exotic foodstuffs, stimulating trade and craftsmanship. The administration of its vast properties and finances also provided employment and opportunities for many outside its walls. Historians still argue about the overall impact of harem influence. Was it a source of stability and cultural flourishing, or did the interference of women in state affairs contribute to periods of weakness or corruption, as some contemporary and later critics alleged. The latter view was often coloured by misogyny and a desire to scapegoat harem women for broader political problems. Modern scholarship tends to offer a more nuanced perspective, recognising both the agency of these women and the complexities of the power they wielded within a patriarchal system. The hands that rock the cradles within the harem often also, metaphorically, rocked the empire. They were not merely passive beauties confined to a gilded cage. They were mothers, patrons, politicians, builders and survivors who, despite the limitations placed upon them, found ways to shape their own destinies and the destiny of one of the world's most powerful empires. Their stories are a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of women navigating deeply complex and often restrictive systems, leaving indelible marks that are still visible today. Their whispers echoed far beyond the harem walls. Section 19 highlighted the often underestimated influence wielded by harem women. Now, as our journey through the life of an Ottoman harem concubine draws towards its close, let's pan out and consider the long sunset of this unique institution. The imperial harem, as we've explored it in its classical form, was not a static entity. It evolved over centuries, mirroring the broader changes within the Ottoman Empire itself, and eventually, like the empire, it faced its decline and dissolution. For you, as a woman whose entire life might have been spent within its walls, or whose life was profoundly shaped by it, these changes would have been felt deeply, ushering in an era of uncertainty and transformation. The Sultanate of Women, that period of intense female political power in the 16th and 17th centuries, eventually waned. Later sultans, sometimes influenced by factions resentful of female power, or by a desire to reassert their own direct authority, sought to curtail the overt political influence of the Valide Sultan and other prominent harem women. While the Valide Sultan always remained a figure of immense prestige and head of the harem, her ability to directly shape state policy became more circumscribed in later centuries. The high-water mark of figures like Koğuş Sultan was not to be repeated with the same intensity. The 18th century, particularly the Tulip period, saw a shift in court culture, with increased Western European influences in art, architecture and lifestyle. While the harem remained a central institution, its internal dynamics and the focus of its inhabitants may have subtly changed, with perhaps a greater emphasis on refined leisure and European-style courtly manners, alongside traditional Ottoman practices. Think of it as a slow cultural osmosis, where new ideas and aesthetics began to seep under the ancient harem doors. You might have noticed new styles of dress, different musical instruments, or even discussions of foreign customs filtering in. The 19th century brought more radical changes. The Ottoman Empire was facing immense internal and external pressures, nationalist uprisings, military defeats, economic challenges, and the growing influence of European powers. A series of reform movements, collectively known as the Tanzimat, aimed to modernise the Ottoman state, military and society. These reforms, while largely driven by men and focused on public institutions, inevitably had an impact on the perception and role of the imperial harem. The traditional secluded nature of the harem began to seem anachronistic to some reformers who were looking to create a more modern Ottoman identity, one that could engage with Europe on more equal terms. Sultan Mahmud II reigned 1808 to 1839. A major reformer significantly curtailed the power of many traditional court offices and sought to centralise authority. While the harem continued, its political sway was further diminished. His successors continued the reforms. Sultan Abdülmecid III reigned 1839 to 1861, and Sultan Abdülaziz reigned 1861 to 1876, were increasingly exposed to European customs and even travelled abroad, something unthinkable for earlier sultans. Their consorts began to adopt more Western-style dress and manners, and the imperial family started to live in new European-style palaces along the Bosphorus, like Dolmabahce Palace, rather than exclusively in the old Topkapi. For you, an ageing woman who perhaps remembered the harem in its more traditional Topkapi setting, this move to Dolmabahce or other new palaces would have been a profound shift. The architecture was different, grander in a European sense, perhaps less intimate and labyrinthine than Topkapi. The routines, the etiquette, even the language might have subtly changed, incorporating more French phrases or European courtly protocols. It's like your ancient, slightly mysterious ancestral castle being traded in for a swanky new Parisian-style hotel. Impressive, but perhaps lacking some of the old soul. The practice of acquiring concubines from slave markets or as captives of war gradually declined and was officially abolished in the later 19th century, though clandestine forms likely persisted for a time. Marriages became more common for sultans, often with women from Circassian or other noble families, rather than relying solely on the traditional concubine system for producing heirs. The very nature of entry into the harem was changing. Historians still argue about the precise moment the classical harem effectively ended, as it was a gradual decline and transformation rather than a sudden abolition of the women's quarters themselves. The institution became more of a royal household in the European sense, though still with its unique Ottoman characteristics and segregated quarters. The final death knell for the imperial harem came with the end of the Ottoman Empire itself. After its defeat in World War I, the Sultanate was abolished in 1922, and the last Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed VI, went into exile. The Turkish Republic was proclaimed in 1923 under Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. In 1924, the Caliphate, which the Ottoman Sultans had also held, was abolished, and all remaining members of the Ottoman imperial family were exiled from Turkey. The harems in Topkapi, by then a museum, and the newer palaces were officially disbanded. The remaining women, elderly consorts, daughters, distant relatives, and long-serving kalfas, found themselves in a bewildering new world. Some, with family connections or resources, managed to adapt. Others faced considerable hardship. Their world, the only world many of them had ever known, had vanished. Imagine spending your entire life training for a very specific, very exclusive job, and then the entire company, the entire industry, just ceases to exist overnight. The harem, once a symbol of the Sultan's power and mystique, became a historical artifact, a subject of fascination, romanticization, and often misunderstanding. Its physical spaces, like the harem section of Topkapi Palace, were open to the public, allowing curious eyes to peer into what had once been a deeply secluded and mysterious world. For you, looking back from the twilight of your life, or perhaps as a spirit lingering in those now empty halls, the harem's long sunset would be a poignant narrative. It was a place of beauty and brutality, of learning and confinement, of intrigue and deep affection. It shaped emperors and empires, and it was, for better or worse, home. The echoes of laughter, music, whispered secrets, and crying babies would forever haunt its courtyards, a testament to the countless lives lived within its gilded embrace, lives like yours that contributed to its complex, enduring story. The sun has now fully set on the Ottoman imperial harem, its gates closed not by eunuchs, but by history. Its story, however, continues to captivate, a reminder of a world that once was, and of the extraordinary women who inhabited it. Their voices, though perhaps faint, still speak to us from across the centuries, if we listen closely enough. The wind sighs gently through the cypress trees in the courtyards of Topkapi Palace, rustling the leaves, perhaps carrying the faintest scent of ancient roses and forgotten perfumes. The latticed windows, which once filtered the sunlight onto scenes of study, artistry, and quiet contemplation, now look out onto pathways trod by curious visitors from around the globe. The marble feels cool, smoothed by the passage of countless lives, each with its own untold story, its own unique journey through the intricate world that was the imperial harem. Imagine, just for a moment, that you are one of those lives, now a whisper in the historical tapestry. The daily anxieties, the triumphs, the small joys, the profound connections, and the ever-present awareness of your unique, constrained destiny have all faded into the soft hum of the past. The demands of etiquette, the fear of a misstep, the hope for favour, these pressures have lifted, leaving behind a sense of quietude, perhaps even a profound peace. The world you knew, with its specific rules and hierarchies, has dissolved, replaced by a new era, new customs, new dreams. Yet, the fundamental human experiences you encountered, the search for security, the bonds of friendship and family, the desire for purpose, the ache of loss, and the flicker of hope, these are timeless. They connect your imagined existence within those ancient walls to the listeners drifting off to sleep right now, in their own beds, in their own worlds, so very different, yet touched by the same universal currents of life. May your own dreams tonight be peaceful, untroubled by the intrigues of sultans or the whispers of a gilded cage. May you find rest and wake refreshed, ready for whatever your own morrow may bring.